thinking about the housing, just to go on that trail just for a minute, what is a solution? I've been on the Housing Access Coalition, since it kind of started.
I know. We're getting ready to put the forum on October 30th.
October 30th.
And Black Desert's going to host us at their new facility, so
Nice.
super excited about that. But we're bringing panels in. I mean, we've asked Patrick Manning because we kind of love what he's doing with Black Desert right now, and he's a big advocate for attainable housing right now. And
yeah. Well, and I
love Isaac Barlow with Tech Ridge and what they're trying to create. So it's all these new innovators and new businesses that are, like Chris Connors with FS Coffee.
FS Coffee Company.
He's like, he's got to find housing for his employees right now.
Yeah.
Up in Springdale, where my husband's a police officer, all of those businesses are like, if we build something here, we also have to build housing along with it. It just makes sense. And I don't know how, the hospital, right? They're trying to recruit just like Utah Tech and bring in all these doctors and all these medical professionals from all over. Mm-hmm. And we have to come up with a solution. And I'm just waiting to hear who has that kind of money or who can help. Are we going to incentivize these builders? What kind of land is even available? Because I hear like even the city workers are commuting from Parowan and Cedar City or Mesquite because they can't afford a home just right here, right where they work. And I just keep hearing all the problems, but I don't hear any solutions yet. Have you? Have you heard any? Has anyone come to the table with something? No,
I have in my mind, but I don't ever see it happening. I don't see it happening. The first thing that modern like home loans, thinking of like the process in which people buy homes today, was essentially created in like the late 70s and into the 80s. Okay, so like if you think of any town in the country and you think, okay, if I was to go to the county assessor and pick out what's the average size home,
mm-hmm.
what's the average size home from a home that was built between 1950 and 1972. Okay. 1972 or 4. I never remember. We went off the gold standard, right? So Nixon takes us off the gold standard. So if you look at that, the average size home, we've grown the size home by like 55% after the 70s, right?
Yes.
Why? Is it all of a sudden we wanted bigger houses? So for hundreds of years, right? You go back in time into the past.
Great question.
Why do we need big houses all the time? So we started getting bigger houses because now the leverage, the ability to buy a house with the ratio of your income
mm-hmm.
to the ability to buy the house, we changed the way. So the savings and loan banking organizations were all created in the late 70s into the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a savings and loan, they call it I think it was like the savings and loan crash or crisis, right? Mm-hmm. So all these banks started lending out money. This is before 2008, right? This is just the first one. This is the first one that we had, right? Yeah. In 1989. And we didn't learn from it. We didn't realize, we're giving people more money than they really can manage because wage growth isn't matching our ability and our insatiable appetite to mm-hmm. consume and have more and bigger and bigger and bigger, right?
Yeah.
And if I make more money and I got, 20% down, I can go balloon this ability to develop, right? And it in some ways, I think it wasn't intentional, but you want to spur economic growth. You want to develop businesses. You got to develop properties so those businesses can exist there. You have to develop land, right? And I think that the mantra, like back in the 70s, was a home on every lot, right? The American dream was to own a home, right?
Yeah.
Well, it can't just be residential. We could have limited it to just residential, but we didn't. We extended that ability for the banks to create money out of thin air. I'm telling you, this is exactly
just out of thin air.
They legitimately did. They removed the requirement for the bank to actually hold. So they go off the gold standard. The gold standard was Fort Knox had gold in it, mm-hmm. right? And you had to have an equal amount of gold to the notes that you were issuing out to your borrowers.
I love this.
And then they stopped doing that. Why are you laugh?
I love it.
You knew this.
Yep, I know.
Why is it funny?
I just think it's so great.
I just think because the problem. So let me fast. I don't need to teach anybody about this. Truthfully,
this is why I listen to your podcast. I learn something new every week. So, I love it. I'm probably your number one fan.
I appreciate that. I'm glad you're on too, and I appreciate what you do. It's running for city council is a tough thing to do, and your heart's in the right place. And I think you really care about this community. I was a young
mom. I got 4 kids. I mean, it's working full time, and then I'm like, oh, I want to help the city.
Well, you have the energy, and you're open minded to humble enough to know what you don't know. You're not coming up with like, I got all the answers, right? Like, these are. I think we need a mix on city council. I really thought you'd be a great addition to the city council.
Thank you.
So I'm glad you came on too, because I love what you're doing at Utah Tech as well.
Thanks.
The solution with the Housing Action Coalition, right?
Hear.
They have to pay more money to the people that are employed there. It's all ran by the state. Yeah. Intermountain Healthcare, Utah Tech, the governments, they're the number one employer of our county by a long shot.
Yep.
The government,
school district.
The government, the state government, the city governments, the school districts, the ones that we pay taxes to, at a surplus, mind you.
Yeah.
They make more money. The revenue is more, which they've done a great job. And I'll give Brad Wilson and the state legislatures, they've done a great job balancing the budget, managing the budget. They're collecting more and more revenue all the time, and they're not distributing it out in the way that I think they should be. They don't need to be raising
higher wages for all state entities, municipalities.
They need to pay more money. They need to stop. And Intermountain Healthcare is a great example, but that goes into a whole nother rabbit trail of reasons why they pay the way that they pay. But the state government can get involved and start paying more money for that. Cut expenses for programs and things that don't make sense, and pay the needed employees. This goes back to the city. And something I definitely have no argument with the pressure or the challenge to the city council of saying, are you prioritizing the most important things at the top and then going down the list, and then what's at the bottom, and can we fund it or can we not based off the revenue that we come into? And, public safety, the police officers having the equipment, being able to attract and retain police officers, the teachers, educators, those people that we're trying to bring in, they got to pay them more money. And then if they pay more money, the private sector will have to compete for that pool of talent, and then they will have to pay more money. Will they raise their prices of their goods? Yeah, they will. But we're going through a period of inflation where the housing isn't going to get more affordable. There's no way to make it more affordable.
Right.
You can't just give people land, right? I mean, the federal government could just give us land. That would really help, but they're not going to do that. We know that's not going to happen. And so we bang our head against the wall of like, well, what can we do? We raise money, and then if we subsidize it to, it truly is, and it has nothing to do with what class it is, but if you subsidize it to somebody that isn't showing their value in the marketplace to make more money, right? If they can't make more money at their job, but then they just get it from the government, what are we doing? What are we teaching ourselves, right? As like a community, we're not doing anybody favors by just giving money out, right? That's why I love Habitat for Humanity. It's like, you bring people together, but they just don't have enough. There's just not enough resources to do the scale that they need to do. But we just have to pay people more money, right? The employers, that wage needs to start going up, and how to do that, and what's the fair way of doing that. But I see the problem with affordable housing in Washington County goes back a long time, goes back to a supply thing from a long time ago. The housing market crashed. We lost a lot of workers. Mm-hmm. Cost of labor goes up ahead of the actual value. But then you get people coming here from all over that have money that are driving those prices up, right? And it's not the people that are working here. It's the people that don't work here that are driving those prices up. And how do you control that? You can't control that. Like, what are the levers?
COVID time, we had, in my neighborhood, I think we got 8 new families just from California that moved in during that time. It was insane. They're paying cash for the houses.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh.
So this is the simplest way. So like if anybody's thinking like, how do we fix the problem? It's not complicated. There's 3 elements with affordability. It's the median price of the home,
Yep.
the interest rate,
Yes.
the wage. Those are the only three levers that you can work. Can we change the median price of the home?
Nope.
There's legitimately nothing that we can do, though it's market forces, supply and demand, aside from going back into the 80s and not letting these banks give loans out at the clip that they were.
Right.
Would have had a slower growth, right? It would have been slower,
true.
but it would have been more stable as we grew, right? It wouldn't have been a right angle hyperbolic curve as if you look at wage growth and rent growth. Have you ever seen a track over time of wage growth versus rent growth? And rent just is a rocket ship, and wages like piddly, like barely move, and rent just keeps going sky high. A lot of that has to do with leverage, right? As a individual, I'm like, man, I can go qualify for this loan, and then a renter can just go right in there and I can start making money. Oh, that's the easiest business I've ever heard of. Yeah, I'll do that. Sign me up. Yeah. Why would they not? If you give them the opportunity, they're like, I will do this for my own individual self. Yeah. It's the whole point of having regulators and government, people to be able to be looking at that and be like, if we do that at scale, if a billion people, if a million people do that same thing, what is going to happen? Right. What's the consequence of this, right? But people aren't looking at it. Our government isn't looking at it like that. They're looking at it one election to another. And so can't change the interest rate. The Fed can, but they only do the prime rate. And then this massive web of financial system that we have, that mortgage rates go up and down at almost uncontrollable rates. So those two. The last thing is wages. Last thing. And so how do we pave the way? We go to our biggest employers and most important employers and say, how can we get you to pay more money to the community, right? Yeah. But they're working off the bottom line. So how do we get them to change it? With the government, it seems obvious to me. It seems obvious that the government can set that expectation and drive that. With the university, it's making tough choices. But they also have to see that as, is that really a solution that is going to help us in all of these other priorities? Because housing is important. Yeah, it's important. It's keeping us from being able to hire. But what about all these other things that we need to spend money on? I just can't think.
So are you saying more than ever before, it's crucial to vote for someone that can represent your views on the state level, that can help with maybe the wage increases with all these major entities?
Yeah.
Where would we tell people to start?
I mean,
solicit your local or your state senators, your state representatives. Like, where can you start? How is this going to?
I would say we have to decide. This is so weird. I'm trying to think of because you go and you vote, you go and try to vet that person, right? We have so many people on the ballot, right? And then so many other people watering down that vote, because let's say you have 5 people running, but then it goes back to the convention system. So like, if you're in Southern Utah and you're like, how do I make a difference? Go get involved in the Republican Party. Right. Go get involved in the Democratic Party. Because that's honestly that's where it starts. If you want real meaningful change, then you got to go get involved at the party level, and you can go cast your vote at the ballot box all day long, but you're just, how important is that my one opinion to the one person that's sitting in front of me is, I might be able to convince that person that that's what the problem is, but if there's not an overwhelming push, if there's not a cultural push, if there's not a movement to catch on to an idea that can have meaningful change, we're not going to ever see change. So I think it draws back to community involvement. We have to get together as a community. And at the local level, in politics, it really goes back to the GOP. It goes back to the Republican Party or the Democratic Party or the Libertarian, whatever party. We have to organize as a community and movement and create a movement. That's the only way to do it.